So welcome, Ketzirah. Oh, Kohenet Ketzirah. I have to add that because we need to really honor that wonderful title. Tell me, before we dive into our topic today, a little bit about your name and what Kohenet Ketzirah means to you.
Sure. Hi, Pleasance. So two parts. Kohenet, as you know, title. Ketzirah is the name. So I was part of the first cohort of people to receive the title of Kohenet through the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute. So it's been over 10 years now that I've had the title, and more than almost 15, coming on 15, that I started the journey. And Ketzirah is actually a name I was given during my training. I know, as you've experienced Pleasance, and as most folks do as they jump into Kohenet world, names are a really big deal for us collectively. And there tends to be a lot of soul searching around the name you're called, at least within community. And some of us, then it becomes outside. And I was in a similar situation to, at the time I was like the only one, and now it's a common theme, and I love that I'm not the only one, who is like, my name is blah, I don't fucking know. Like every time I didn't know what to do with my name. I had a lot of issues around my name, my given name. And actually Jill Hammer, Rav Kohenet Ye'ilah, at the end of the first phase of training, so initiation, sat me down and said, I have a gift for you if you want it. I was like, all right, let's do it. What is it? And she said, I have a name for you. And she offered me the name Ketzirah. I probably blubbered and sobbed like a crazy person during like the whole thing, all the feels. And I do not like feels. So like for me, this was super uncomfortable. And I walked out of that private meeting and I said, I told everybody, and they're like, everyone was like, oh my God, that's your name. Like, this isn't a question in anybody's life. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I got really tired of having two names because one felt like everything, all the baggage of 40 odd years.
Yeah.
And Ketzirah is who I want to be and who I'm trying to be. And being called Ketzirah, long answer, sorry. Being called Ketzirah in all aspects of my life, I can't be spiritually lazy. I mean, I can, but I have to acknowledge it. Like being called by the name that I was known by for most of my life, I can be spiritually lazy. I can not be the greatest person, frankly, and I can just do it because that's okay. And it's not okay when someone calls me Ketzirah to not try. So there's the long version and what it means in the last second of this. So the simple version of the meaning of the name is harvest, but it's shifted what it means to me over time. So when I was doing my training, like a lot of folks, again, I have food issues. And part of my healing around that, I was doing a lot of work around creating seders, Haggadot for different holidays, and doing a lot of food work. And so I'm pretty sure that's why Jill landed on harvest at the time. And then as I looked into the meaning of the name, it's not like fecundity and Mother Earth and blah, blah, blah. Like it isn't that side. Not there's anything wrong with that. It's the action of the cutting of the wheat. So for me, the way I really own it now is it's the work of doing the harvest. It's the enjoying of it, but it's somebody who's willing to make hard choices, make hard cuts, and also does that hard work to bring in the harvest. And then sometimes just enjoying it. And if I'm feeling really saucy, then I just say it's the Reaper.
Do you have people who still call you your old name?
Yes. There's a few folks, family members who...
Yeah, I was gonna say family.
Most have been really good, actually.
Yeah.
There's some stumbling. Usually it's just because they don't understand it's important.
Yeah, and you explain it.
It is, and I've had a few, like my father, who passed away a few years ago, his response was, hell no, I gave you your name, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Literally, they picked my name out of a book on the way to the hospital, which I reminded him of because my parents reminded me for years. And I was like, clearly there's no thought, so get over it. My sister took a little bit because she just the understanding of how important it is to me, and how, like, to me, if you call me by my old name, you don't see me now.
Yeah.
So she finally, and her nephew who's 10, she's like, oh, what's he gonna do? And I'm like, he's not gonna care, he's 10. Just be like, I have a new name.
Yeah.
So, which is totally true. He was like, all right,
Yeah.
I don't care. And so my sister was able to, by calling me Aunt Kay, for
Yeah.
some reason that started making it something she could do repeatedly without constantly stumbling. And then, yeah, a few other folks, it's just, they're like, oh, it's not just a Facebook thing. Like,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
so powerful in that first retreat. It's kind of, it reminds me of like, you don't know what you don't know, or, you know, you're kind of, when you're swimming in something, it's hard really to be critical right about it until you're exposed. So on our first Kohenet retreat, when I lived in Israel, my Hebrew teacher called me Naima because that was the translation of pleasant. So there I joined Kohenet and I'm in and I'm like, oh, it's Naima, because that's what she called me. And going through the whole retreat, and then by the end, there was so much talk about naming, and the name your parents give you, the name other people call you, the name you name yourself. And this, I just broke down weeping, being like, I don't want to be pleasant. I'm more than that. I'm deeper than that. I'm darker than that. I'm more intense than pleasant. Like, pleasance is a persona. And if your name is something like Pleasance, it's really deep, that kind of identity. So from that moment, kind of like pulling the thread of that whole yarn, you know, and I'm still in the process and have done a wonderful job of kind of stalking all of our leaders, Teoma and Yaila and you and all my friends who have changed their name, and just asking them about it and writing Hebrew and listening for words, and heard Shamira recently on 11/11, and I